Hi, everyone. It's Kimbyrleigha, and this is Kimbyrleigha Live, where I discuss current and ongoing true crime cases and break down legal aspects in an easy to understand manner. If you've been here before, you already know I am taking my upcoming bar exam 2026. So, this really just helps me to brush up on the law, talking about trials, and of course, just hanging out with all of you. And that's why I really wanted to go on tonight, even though I usually think weekends aren't the best to go live because I know we're all busy. But if you are new here, hi, it's nice to finally meet you. I do have a main true crime channel here on YouTube. I linked it in the description box. We're almost to a 500,000 subscribers. Thanks to all of you. I also have a true crime podcast with my husband called Dark Livity. Both of those channels discuss solved cases, narrative format. If you like that, consider checking them out. I hope that my audio is okay. I did not check that before I went on. So I'm really hoping if anything's wrong, let me know as soon as you can in the chat. And thank you all for being here. So I know I'm a couple days behind. If people care about that kind of thing, I am going to try to be better about catching up and try to do my lives the same day that the court trial comes out. I haven't asked this yet, but I was also curious. I don't think I'm going to do this, but I just wanted to know how many of you watch the trial during the day with like someone like Emily D. Baker, or if you're watching it on Law and Crime. I'm just curious about that. I usually watch mine on just like ABC, Boston, but I was curious as to if you are watching it with anyone or if you're watching it every day. And I'm about to fix my camera right now. I figured it out. I was texting my husband, but it's fine. I'm gonna change this and come right back. It's just my autofocus. Okay. I'm so sorry. I knew something weird was going to happen. I had like the intuition tonight. Okay. So we are back. We are in business. Everything is good. You can see my face. The trolls are not being auto focused on. But like I was saying, if you're new here, sorry about that. I might cut that out later. But also, I wanted to let you know if you do want to see me live in person, I'm going to be at CrimeCon and you can come out and see us live and hang out with us. I also have a code. It's just my name, Kimber. So if you do want money off of your tickets and you do want to come to Denver, I think it'll be really fun to meet everyone. This was also a shorter day in court. This was the one on Thursday because yesterday we broke down Wednesday. Now we're on Thursday. And I'm probably going to do Friday on Monday. Okay. A lot of you also said in the last video you really like my breakdowns because, you miss things during trial or maybe you don't quite understand something or things are going really fast and it's a good refresher. And then there are two things I want to mention. I would love to see all of your, because we talked about this, like your 3 panel presentations when you were a kid in elementary school. If you are on my Discord as a YouTube member from my other channel, don't know if I'm going to be doing memberships on here, but I imagine I probably will. I would love for you to post an old picture of one of your science projects because I think that would be really funny. And I'm going to see if my mom can dig up one of mine. The other thing I wanted to say is I might be reorganizing my membership on that channel and this, and might be doing something different with both of them. So stay tuned. And then I have to make an admission. I forgot that I was going to tell you a confession, and then Courtney left last night, and I wasn't able to confess something to you. It slipped my mind. I had no one here to remind me, and I think we all forgot. And then probably on the replay, people were like, "Where's this confession?" I think I've told you this before, but I have like aphantasia and I have no mind's eye. So I can't close my eyes and imagine something. I've talked about it in videos before. And then I found out Emily D. Baker has the same thing. And I'm like, I know it's pretty common though. I didn't know I had it until I watched a YouTube video and I found out like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, wait, people don't just see blackness when they close their eyes. Anyway, so this entire time, and this is important, I thought Karen Reed's SUV was going down 34 Fairview with the back of it towards a flagpole. But I realized after watching a few simulations that it's the other way around, that her car is facing the flagpole and the Commonwealth is proposing that she's driving past the flagpole, almost to the neighbor's yard, and then backing up and hitting John O'Keefe that way. And that is how he landed near the flagpole because that's where he was standing, according to them. I had no idea. My mind, the way that it thinks, it had never been able to visualize that before. So I just wanted to confess that all of this time I've been thinking that they were saying she backed into him the other way. So that's why it hasn't really made sense to me. But I realized when the car's going the other way, it lines up better. Like the narrative makes a lot more sense. So I wanted to get that off my chest because I felt bad. But then I was thinking, like, why would he be standing in that position? Why would he be at the end of 34 Fairview? But at the end of the day, um, you know, there are some questions. There are some questions, definitely. And also, in this video that we're going to talk about today, there is a clip from one of the documentaries. And to me, I feel like it was pretty damning for Karen. I don't think she should have spoken. That's why attorneys usually say, don't make any statements. You have the right to just remain silent. It's okay. But she kind of gives her own hypothesis about what could have happened early on in the case. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because I just think it's important to look at both sides. And I think everything that I know now, coupled with that statement to her attorney, I don't want to go there yet because we're going to listen to it later. But I just feel like, I don't know, it's not a good look because I feel like it can definitely raise some questions. And Courtney's probably like, right, I've been saying that all along. And I'm like, no, but I'm just like everyone else, I'm trying to navigate. Give me 1 second as I try to get our other scene up because I think I've also messed that up. And I apologize. It's this one. I have to just make sure it's, centered and stuff. Hold on. See, I thought I had this all ready tonight and I was with the baby, so I'm a little bit behind in mom life. Okay, here we go. So we're on the first part. And also, just a reminder of what this trial day was about. Let me bring my comments over. I'm scattered today. ADHD really showing. Okay. So we're back on track, and this is more of Welcher's testimony. And I think it's important that I go back because I was going to tell you, you're going to look at this and be like, wait a minute, this is day 22. So I went one day back because at the end of the day last night, I missed something. And I want to be thorough. I don't want somebody to say, Kimber, you totally missed something that was really important because this actually was pretty important. So before we get into day 23, I'm just going to play a couple things really quick. Alessi is questioning Dr. Welcher about how many feet Karen supposedly reversed during the trigger event. And he concluded it was 87 feet total, but then clarifies to the defense attorney that the vehicle initially moved forward and then shifted into reverse during the trigger event. So do you guys remember this? Because I thought this was like really, really important. I'm going to play it and you're going to understand what I'm talking about. So let's play this and let's get a really good idea. And by the way, I have to tell you about this whole thing last night that happened. Remember when John came in here and you saw that Dark Livity was like texting on the live chat? I was kind of like confused why my husband was doing that. Our friends were here and we were going to play a game. We ended up not playing Sherlock Holmes. He was coming in here to tell me he created the Law Baddies shirt. Like from what we were saying, he went and created it because he's so creative. And I had no idea. And he was trying to put it in the chat. And that would have been so fun because he was going to do a limited time for just while we were in chat. And then he was going to make a real one. Like this was just a trial one. Like it wasn't supposed to be like the real one. Oh my gosh, there it is. Someone just put it in the link. I have to buy them. We don't get them for free with the company we use to make our merch. It's a little bit expensive because it is high quality. I mean, if you ever, get any of their items, they're like really nice. They're like really good quality. The inside is like all like when you buy the sweatshirts and stuff. But anyhow, he made a special one for me last night. He came back here at like 2 a.m. and made me one because I wanted to order it ASAP so that it could get here. But anyway, I bought it because I thought it was so cute and it was a memory for us. But we are going to try to make a better one and a cooler one. So that'll be like the limited edition one. Okay, let's jump into the case. I'm so sorry. We're having a wild night. But here we go. Let's see. Wait, this is all off balance, isn't it? Let's see. There we go. Okay. Let's play. And hopefully my audio is working for this one as well.
Okay. So you believe
Let me know if it's not.
represents the total rearward distance. Did I hear you correctly?
Correct.
Now, can you please...
Hold on, to be clear. So it starts, it pulls forward, then it backs up, passes where it initially started, and goes 53 feet further back.
That's what I want to get to. How many feet did you say on direct, and did you just say now that it went 87 feet in reverse?
Correct.
Okay.
From its furthest point forward.
Well, that's what I want to get to because I want to have this point clear. How many feet do you believe the Lexus went in reverse based upon your PowerPoint presentation? Not when it went forward and then came backwards. How many feet do you believe that vehicle went in reverse?
Your question doesn't make any sense because when it went forward, then it went in reverse.
How many feet do you believe the Lexus went during the trigger?
So it went a total of 80, it went 34 feet forward, then it came back 80, or another 53 feet past where it went.
Exactly. So,
Yes, we were.
you've testified that the 1162-2 trigger event represents a backwards maneuver, correct?
So again, that was clear. It initially pulls forward and then backs up.
I would like you to define, so it's clear to the jury, do you consider the event of 1162-2 just backward movement, or do you consider the trigger to be forward movement and adding to it backward movement? Which one?
So can we pull the slide up?
Sure.
I was so confused. And I don't know if anyone else is confused by this. I'm like, is he saying she went 87 feet back or or did she do 53? Because I was still confused. He's scratching his head.
Could you zoom in? There you go. No, go back to the left.
I'm curious of this too.
So that T in the third column for data ID represents the trigger. If you scroll over a little bit to the right, where the highlighted yellow blocks are, you can see 1 is a forward drive gear, 0 is neutral, 2 is reverse. So that's where it's switched from forward to reverse. I mentioned the brake. So you have it on the brakes coming in, slowing, stopping, going into reverse, and then backing up.
So you conclude that the vehicle for this trigger went 34 feet forward, is that correct?
Correct.
How do you know the vehicle didn't go 150 feet forward? How do you know it just went 4 feet forward? How do you know that?
So the only data we have is this 10-second window. And so we have the velocity when it's going forward. We know how much time it took to do that.
Okay.
So that tells us how far it would travel. Velocity times time is distance.
So are you saying that it is a certainty that it went forward 34 feet and there's no other number of feet it could have gone forward? You're absolutely certain of the 34 number?
No. Again, if you look, see where it says vehicle speed?
I see it.
So at the start of this event, which is the trigger -5, so the trigger is actually where it's triggered, and it takes 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after.
He's sweating.
But when the trigger happens, it's actually stopped. But the 5 seconds before, it's going 13.6 miles an hour forward. So at the start of the data, it's still going 13.6 miles an hour forward, but it's slowing down. You can see you have the brake, where it says brake SW, which is short for switch.
Okay.
The brake switch is a 1, which means it's on. So when this event data started, it's going 13 miles an hour.
I'll ask the question a different way. Are you certain that the distance traveled forward during this trigger event was 34 feet? Are you certain?
I'm pretty certain during this trigger event.
Pretty certain or certain?
Well, I've checked the math. I've had people check my math. So I try to be as accurate as possible.
Okay. So when he says he's not absolutely sure that she went the 34 feet forward and then went backwards, and there's reasonable doubt there, right? But he did explain his theory and how he got to that number. It went forward, it slowed down before switching gears, and then it reversed. And apparently there's 87 feet of her backing up. I was confused. Just wait, because he's going to clarify again. But they don't know where she started. And then they don't know where she ended. So at that point in the conversation or in this discussion, I was like, weren't there cars there? That's what I was thinking in my head. And that is exactly the next part. Because remember, supposedly there were parked cars on the side of the road. There was Higgins' Jeep at one point and a pickup truck that we're going to hear about now.
Thank you. Dr. Welcher, am I correct in my understanding that you believe under your theory, the Lexus for event 1162-2 backed up 53 feet? Am I correct?
No, it backed up a total of 87 feet.
Okay, let's take your 87. It backed up a total of 87, okay?
Correct.
And your further theory is that it did so and reached 24 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
And you stated you have an understanding of a certain number of people, and I don't want to talk about the inside of the house, but just that were at 34 Fairview between roughly 12 and 1 a.m. Do you have an understanding of that, sir? Approximately.
I believe I do.
And what is that number?
Did you want them people that were there for that entire window of time, or just?
Yes, 12 to 1.
Oh.
So, Mr. Leslie, just move to the last question.
Right, sure. So, sir, did you assume that there were cars parked out front of 34 Fairview at that 12 to 1 o'clock window? Did you assume any cars parked out front?
The entire time?
No, I'm just talking 12 to, yeah, any time between 12 and 1. Did you make any assumptions whether there were cars parked out front on the roadway at 34 Fairview? Did you make any assumptions with regard to that?
At a point in time, there was a vehicle behind it.
I'm sorry?
There was a vehicle behind it.
Just one?
That is my understanding. In terms of on the street, is
On
your
the
question.
street, exactly. Yes. And what, do you remember the type of vehicle?
Yes.
What kind of vehicle was it?
An F-150 pickup.
So that was the one with Jason Nagel, right? And his friends, and he waiting for his sister? Because that's what he's going to say, that he drove away.
Did you have any understanding as to whether there was a Jeep vehicle on the road at that 12 to 1 time period?
I had seen testimony somewhere to that effect, but the majority of the testimony was there were no other vehicles.
But you did see testimony that there was also a Jeep type vehicle on the front, out the front of 34 Fairview between 12 and 1. Is that what you're recalling?
So I'm going to let that answer stand, what he's just testified to. Just go ahead and.
Okay, so Dr. Welcher, what I want to do is to have you, using your data, you say 87 feet
I hate when they go away from the podium.
for the backup, correct?
Correct.
1162, up to 24 miles per hour. Isn't there a likelihood, if there is at least one vehicle out in front of 34 Fairview, that there would be a collision of the Lexus SUV with the vehicle out front?
No, the vehicle had left prior to the end, or prior to event 1162-2.
What information do you have with regard to how many vehicles are in front of 34 Fairview at between 12 and 1?
We know that Brian Higgins' Jeep was still there because he didn't leave to go to the Canton PD until about like 1:15 or something, because he got there at like 1:27 or 1:22. And it's only like a 5-minute drive, I think. Don't quote me on the exact minutes. But my point is, he has testified not in this trial, but he's testified last time that he was parked in front of the mailbox. So there was a car there.
So I have Ms. Reed's interview statements. I have statements of a number of witnesses. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the names.
I was just going to say, let's not just number of vehicles.
Okay, so I have a number of witness statements at multiple statements from the same witnesses at different times, indicating the path and following the Lexus to the house and then leaving before the event.
Assume that there were vehicles, at least one vehicle, parked out front of 34 Fairview. Is there a likelihood that given 24 miles per hour over 87 feet, is there a likelihood that there would be a collision given the weather conditions as you knew them to be at that time?
Well, the weather I don't think necessarily plays into whether there would be a collision or not, but we know it backed up 87 feet. So again, it goes forward like 35-ish and then back like 60-something. And so if something is within 65 feet of the rear of it, or whatever the numbers are, I don't need my slides.
It was
Oh
50.
my gosh.
50,
okay. Yeah, go
57. If something is within that window, then it would hit it.
All right, good. So now let's look at another scenario. If it's going as you describe it, is there a likelihood that the Lexus would also go upon the lawn in front of 34 Fairview?
It depends
point.
on where it starts.
You have an opinion, don't you, as to where it starts?
No, I do not. That's actually why I have that diagram showing it off to the side.
That's
I'm
right.
simply showing how far it moved forward, how far it moved back.
Exactly.
We don't know where on the roadway it started.
Exactly. You don't know where on the roadway it started, and therefore all you have is the distance covered, correct?
Correct.
So, but you're saying the distance is 87 feet, correct?
87 feet backwards, yes.
So backwards, 24 miles an hour. Have you ever driven a vehicle backwards 24 miles an hour, sir?
Yes, I think I've driven this Lexus backwards 24 miles.
Right.
Remember, I think I asked everyone in here if they've ever gone that fast backing up. I've heard it's not easy to do.
So if anybody who's driven a vehicle back, have you ever driven any vehicle back 24 miles an hour at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning?
Probably not since I got out of high school.
Have you ever done it when there's a storm that is beginning?
No.
Have you ever done it when there is less than clear visibility?
No and no.
And have you ever done it when there's low lighting?
Oh, maybe when I've been up skiing in the snow, I've done it. But again, that's been decades.
Right. So 87 feet, 24 miles an hour. Are you saying that in every instance that vehicle will stay on the road and for 34 Fairview it wouldn't go up on the lawn?
When you mean every instance, mean like every possible location on the road it starts from?
Correct.
This is funny.
No, there's some spots, if you start here, it's going to go up on the road, on the yard. If you start too far on the other side, you're going to go over into the neighbor's yard. So it depends on where you start.
Right. And so in given the conditions that we've just described, right?
Conditions
the weather,
have nothing to do with
I
where
need
you
to
start.
finish my
Hold
question,
on.
sir.
Only one at a time.
Yes, ma'am.
Let him finish his question, please.
Given the conditions that you've described, it is reasonable to conclude that that vehicle, under your parameters, would have gone up on the lawn. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
No.
So you don't think there's any possibility that could occur a vehicle going 24 miles an hour at this location, 87 feet backwards, in the dark, with wet pavement at a minimum, and low lighting, you don't believe it's possible for the vehicle to, under your scenario, to have gone up on the lawn? That's not
So
possible.
your first
Wait for it.
question was reasonable, and I said no. Now you're asking possible. It, of course, is possible. Whether it's reasonable or not, I'd have to know the starting position.
Right.
If it's very close to the side, then it could be reasonable. If it's further towards the middle of the road because snow is building up on the side of the road, then it's probably not as reasonable. I would need more information to be able to determine whether it's reasonable or not. It's certainly possible. It's possible it could have shot off into space as an engineer, but not probable.
Oh, you think it's possible that it could have been shot off into space, sir?
As an engineer, it's a possibility.
That's what I was waiting for. He said it's a possibility that it could even shoot into space. But it's 87 feet in reverse and reached 24 miles per hour. And there was at least one car that we know of parked outside on the road. But he was referring to the F-150. But Higgins's Jeep was out there too. He didn't leave until sometime after 1 a.m. So it would have still been parked in front of that mailbox. How did she not hit him or go up on the lawn? And he doesn't know where Karen's SUV started. They can't pinpoint that. So I think that can be problematic. But now let's get into day 23. It wasn't a long day, so we don't have that many to go through, but enough to talk about. I do want to fix this really quick. It's bothering me. Got a lot of tabs. Okay, just want to make it like easy to see. Okay. So we are getting into day 23. The Commonwealth actually concluded its case. But before they did, there was an argument that was outside the presence of the jury. And then Dr. Welcher and his emotional support laptop and T1, is it a TI? It's a TI-83, right? I always get it confused with a T1, but it's TI-83. His graphing calculator was back again. He's been in court for so many days, but I don't think I'm going to play all these clips for you. They had this argument outside the presence of the jury. And basically, what was happening here is that the defense wanted to question Dr. Welcher about some of the things that he relied upon. Alessi was strongly objecting to the judge's earlier ruling that she wanted to limit his cross examination of Dr. Welcher. And Alessi argued that Welcher relied and even adopted findings from two non testifying witnesses, or actually one did testify, which was the medical examiner, but Trooper Paul. He originally developed one of the documents, some of the analysis, the odometer data that was used in Welcher's analysis. And of course, we know that the doctor, the medical examiner, the autopsy findings, they were actually cited by Welcher in the slide presentations. So Alessi claimed that the prosecution was attempting to shield and sword. Those were the words he used, which I thought were interesting. These documents, these testimonies, and trying to make it look like they could cherry pick what they wanted, but also not rely on those witnesses because it didn't go to their narrative. And he emphasized that they had a Sixth Amendment violation on Karen Reid's right to cross examine adverse witnesses. And basically, these witnesses are problematic for the Commonwealth. That's what they were arguing. And they know that Trooper Paul determined that the trigger event in the beginning, the 1162, happened not at 34 Fairview, but when the SUV was already in the possession of the state police. We're going to get into that more when we get into the defense's case that they're bringing on, because I have to tell you, Brennan is doing pretty well on cross-examination. I was just watching the current case and I was like, okay, he's making some points that I wasn't expecting. But also Trooper Paul did not label John O'Keefe's, oh, not Trooper Paul. Trooper Paul did not have the right key cycle labeled correctly. And then we have the death and the medical examiner not ruling it a homicide. So of course, Welcher wanted to use one of the slides that was in the medical examiner's documentation, but he didn't want to go with her theory. So Brennan came and countered that Dr. Welcher did not rely on Trooper Paul's analysis or the doctor's conclusions. He asserted that the defense wanted to just reinforce prior trial themes from the other trial, the other proceeding, without actually calling original witnesses. And he argued that things like a photo that was in the slide wasn't tied to Paul's opinion, just some of the data points that were considered. And at the end of the day, the judge ruled that the defense would not be allowed to cross-examine Welcher on these findings. So it didn't come in. Now, I could see why, I guess, but I was a little surprised. But when we came back, he was on cross-examination again. And when the jurors came back in this time, Alessi asked the judge if she could please make sure that he does not have his laptop out or smartwatches or anything he'd be looking at. And then we're going to discuss the glass found on Karen's bumper. So let's get into that now. I thought it was a pretty interesting day.
Dr. Welcher back in, please, and Mr. Alessi, feel free to go to the podium.
And by the way, I don't know why YouTube's doing that whole jumping thing.
It doesn't look like it's turned on at all.
Oh, okay, good. And smartwatches.
No smartwatches. Nothing turned on, putting on 1.25. Closed captioning.
This one.
Sir, I'll remind you still under oath.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor.
Here we go. His emotional support laptop.
You did not turn on your computer yet.
Okey-dokey.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, if I could, smartwatches that are receiving text messages during his direct, if we can make sure that that does not occur.
Get my email on the line. How'd I go?
Okay, or just don't look at your watch.
Okay.
Don't look at your watch, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Dr. Welcher.
Good morning.
Do you know whether there was glass found on the bumper of Miss Reid's Lexus SUV?
My understanding there was, yes.
Did you reach a conclusion on whether the glass on the bumper came from the drinking glass that you assert Mr. O'Keefe was holding at the time of the alleged impact?
I didn't have an opportunity to inspect the glass, but the glass was broken and there was glass on the bumper. That's all I know.
So you, as you sit here today, you have no basis to conclude that the glass on the bumper came from the glass that you depict as having been held by Mr. O'Keefe at the time of the alleged impact. Is that correct?
Well, you're mixing a couple things.
No, Dr. Welcher,
So
if you can just answer my question. If
trying
I
to.
need to rephrase it, I will. I'll ask it a different way.
Please.
You have no basis, as you sit here today, to conclude that the glass on the bumper came from a drinking glass connected to Mr. O'Keefe, do you?
Well, we have a picture of a broken glass at the scene. So I wouldn't say we have no basis. We don't necessarily have enough to conclude it's from it, though.
Interesting.
Do you had depictions in your test with Mr. O'Keefe holding a glass, correct?
Correct.
My question is, you have no evidence to show at all other than, and I'm talking evidence, testing information. You're saying you have no evidence that shows that the glass on the bumper is not the same glass as you showed on your slides as being found supposedly at the scene. You have no test evidence that that's the same glass, do you?
So again, the one I have at my testing
Yes, this is in front of the jury.
obviously was not the same glass. We have pictures of a broken bar glass in the snow near where Mr. O'Keefe's body was. We have glass fragments on the rear of the bumper. That's the extent of my knowledge on the correlation between those two.
So you said you reviewed the reports and testimonies of various Commonwealth representatives, correct? That's in your report.
Correct, in the initial.
In the initial, right, correct. And some of those reports included forensic scientists who work for the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And you put those in your report as documents that you reviewed, correct?
Correct.
And as you sit here today, it's your testimony. You don't know whether in any of the reports of the Massachusetts State Police there is an answer to the question of whether there's any connection at all between the glass found in the snow and the glass on the bumper.
I recall it being inconclusive.
Oh, so you recall that the testing was inconclusive?
I don't remember what testing they did, but for example, when they put the taillight fragments back together, they were able to deduce that the fragments were from the taillight. I don't think they attempted to do that with the glass.
He doesn't know. Welcher didn't know that the bumper glass wasn't a match for the cocktail glass, the one that he spent a while obtaining. He explained that from the same bar that Karen and John got it from. Okay, and one of his theories was that the glass was thrown at the back of the vehicle. Remember that? And then in his demonstration, he was holding a glass, but that glass never ended up on the bumper, according to testing and lab work, right? So wouldn't that skew his data? That's kind of what Alessi's trying to show here. If there's no link between the bumper glass and the scene glass, then it could affect his hypothesis about John O'Keefe holding a glass during the alleged impact. Though he argues no, it wouldn't have fundamentally changed his overall conclusions, so that it wouldn't change anything. To him, his analysis, and fair enough, I understand, wasn't about the glass. But remember, he's holding his arm like this. I think holding the glass gives him a reason why the arm would be like in that position. So I felt like it was a significant aspect, but he denied it being significant. But I think that this next part was pretty significant, although it's all about the laser scans again. It's kind of like they're going back over everything once again. But he wanted to show the Karen into John's Traverse again at his house. Remember that? Well, was it bad enough for it to break the taillight? Well, that was an argument that it wasn't, that it was a minor impact. Well, it turns out that the firm that uses Aperture, the one he works for, maybe owns a part of, people said, they used a different ring camera. It was installed after the incident. And they used this new ring camera to reconstruct the scene at John's. And he didn't measure distances or placement or distortion between the old camera and the new camera. And he admitted he relied on a visual approximation. So as some people put it, he eyeballed it. So Alessi is going to push him on that there are a lot of variables that could alter the perspective of the camera, the measurements, and especially analyzing this entire scene. I was a little surprised when I heard that. For as accurate as I felt like they were supposed to be, I was like, wow, they would let that slide. They would use a completely, different camera, but let's listen in.
Laser scans. Part of your analysis involved conducting laser scans of portions of 1 Meadows Avenue, the house of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
Those laser scans were used at least in part to answer the question of whether the collision between Miss Reed's SUV and Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse at One Meadows at approximately 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022, caused the right rear taillight of the Lexus to break, correct?
Correct.
And in that analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
You want to get it as accurate as possible.
And the reason why inches matter is because, and we're going to get to this, you
I would say inches matter when you're talking about whether or not the taillight broke at this moment or at a different moment.
tried, and you did it in your slide presentation on direct, you tried to see whether the Lexus lined up with the Traverse such that there could be a break of the taillight. That was part of your analysis, correct?
So the main part of the photogrammetry was to determine the speeds and the angles and the degree of overlap on the vehicles. And then we also looked at the damage from the video, or actually it's just where the snow was knocked off the rear of the Chevy Traverse, and document the height of that.
You said the main part. I don't want to engage in semantics. I want to go to my question of, isn't part of the laser scan analysis to determine whether or not those two vehicles aligned sufficiently such that the Lexus could break, the taillight of the Lexus could break coming into contact with the Chevy Traverse? Wasn't that part of your analysis, at least in part?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Welcher looks scared. And unless he's like yelling.
In that analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
It can, depending on which way you're going inches.
So the Ring
Lisa.
camera at One Meadows, you're familiar with that Ring camera, right? At
Correct.
One Meadows? That Ring camera at One Meadows was used as part of the laser scan process that you and your firm Aperture performed at One Meadows on October 2nd, 2024. Do I have the date correct?
I believe so, but like the videos were not literally used during the laser scans. We took the laser scans, the video, combined them together in a process called photogrammetry.
Okay, let's get this down to the fundamentals. You used, and that was my question, Your Honor, if we could publish the exhibit with regard to the Ring camera.
Sure.
I see all your comments too, and I'm going to get them as soon as I can. And I'll leave some time at the end too to go over some. And I saw I got a super chat.
Dr. Welcher, you recognize that Ring camera as being at One Meadows. You discussed it, as a matter of fact, on your direct testimony, correct?
Yes.
Now, that Ring camera was utilized as part of your laser scan process, correct? It was used.
So you're confusing laser scan and photogrammetry. The video, the laser scanners are together used in the photogrammetry. The camera and the laser scans are not used necessarily with each other.
What?
Was that Ring camera used for any part of your work?
Absolutely, the photogrammetry.
Thank you.
I just need to be able to finish my question, sir. Was that
sorry.
Ring camera used for any part of your work at One Meadows on October 2nd, 2024?
Yes.
And it was used for what purpose?
In the photogrammetric process, to establish the position and dimensions of various things in the video. So then we could go back and overlay the vehicles and track the tracks in the snow, as well as look at the damage to the vehicles.
Right. So this was used to...
It was used to recreate that scene. I was kind of blown away by this. I was like, why did they take the other Ring camera? Maybe it was evidence. I don't know. Somebody else moved in there. I don't really understand. Why did they not use the same one? And it gets even worse because it's angled more to the right, and he admits that. It's a totally different camera. They're relying on it to tell whether or not a significant event happened in this case.
as a basis, not the only one, to establish dimensions of the other work that was done in analysis at One Meadows, correct?
Correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. You know that the Ring camera at One Meadows, in existence when Aperture did the work on October 2nd, 2024, was different than the Ring camera that was in existence on January 29th of 2022, the date where you went through to see if those two vehicles aligned. Is that correct? The cameras are different.
That is correct.
And you know that the cameras are different, and you knew that as part of your analysis, correct?
Correct.
But they don't even point that out. Shouldn't they? Shouldn't they say, here we made this entire recreation, but note, this is a different camera, but here's the thing, we did this, 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 this. But no, they didn't say anything. It's almost like asking for forgiveness instead of permission.
Did you document the differences between the two cameras as part of any work performed at One Meadows?
Yes.
And did you measure any differences there might have been between the location of the newer ring camera from the older one that was in existence on January 29th of 2022?
No, what we did is use the current ring camera in conjunction with the old ring camera, and with the laser scans, we're able to, again, map the points onto the scene. That's why I showed you the report from the photogrammetry software that reported our error.
Sir, my question was just measurement, not your process.
Oh.
Did you measure the difference
don't believe
between
so.
where the old camera was and where the new camera was?
No, it was angled slightly more to the right, though.
How would you know that if you were not retained on January 29th of 2022? How would you know where the original angles were?
Because when you look at the first camera, the one on January 22nd, it's here. The new one is slightly over to the right.
That's an eyeball approximation analysis. That's not a measurement, correct?
Well, I don't know that we actually measured it, but we accounted for it and corrected for it. But you can see, for example, what the original one shows, for example, to the left-hand side, compared to what the new one shows to the left-hand side, and it's angled more to the right.
Sir,
That's not good in my opinion. I mean, I'm not an expert like he is, but I was shocked. I was. I think if I were a juror, I would be like, wait a minute. How are they going to know that everything on those laser scans were done the right way if it's using a totally new camera at a different angle? So, I mean, that wasn't the same camera that was there when Karen made impact with that car. So I think I would take that into consideration. Let me know what you think. It doesn't seem like Welcher thinks it's a big a deal. He just thinks, no, we accounted for it. But then Alessi wants to take a look at the scans and the alignment of these two vehicles. We already looked at this, but he's going to put them together. Remember that? He's going to put them together where he thinks that they hit. And he's going to argue that there was minimal contact. I don't know why I can't talk tonight. Contact between them. However, there's going to be something that Alessi is going to point out. And I was like, wow, I didn't really see that the first time. So I thought this was important. Also, let me just make sure if I'm not at like 2 times speed. Yep, I almost am. And while you're listening to this, I have to turn off my alarm. I forget to every time.
and again, all of the camera, this camera that you use is the starting point for your laser scan and photogrammetry process, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's go to another topic. On your direct testimony, as I recall, you stated essentially from various information that you lined up in the video, and we're talking about the lining up of the Lexus with the Traverse. And this is at One Meadows. And so, as I understand what you did, sir, is you took what are called point clouds, 3D images, created them for the Lexus. You took created 3D images, synonym point clouds of the Traverse, and then you attempted to line them up to determine, among other things, whether they would align sufficient so that the Lexus could line up and potentially hit the Traverse such that the tail light of the Lexus could be broken. Was that at least part of your analysis?
That was part. There was more.
So, you showed a few slides, and with your Honor's permission, what I'd like to do is to start with slide 90.
All right. Do you have any
Also wanted to point out I got a super chat. Keep forgetting to show it. Jessica, thank you so much. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it so much. And thank you for being here tonight. I always have to remember my super chats because I really appreciate that.
problem with Dr.
The law baddies are in the house.
printed copy of these?
I have no problem
I
with
love
the
it.
printed copy, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, what slide again?
90.
You are going to remember this
Your Honor, my printed copy.
image when you see it. It's a bunch of images.
Yes,
Remember he
yes.
said? The laser scans like thousands and thousands of pictures.
Does that slide that's part of your presentation
Not this one.
depict a view from the top of the Lexus on the right and the Chevy Traverse on the left?
I mean, when you're just looking at this picture, I have no experience looking at alignments of vehicles when they collide, but to me, that would look exactly where her taillight is.
Correct?
And is that depicting contact between the two vehicles?
It is.
Now let's zero in a closer look, and that is a contact point. Am I correct?
Correct? I mean, there's multiple points. There's
Multiple
more than one.
points, but it shows more clearly the contact
Correct.
between the two vehicles. Now if we could,
I think this is a scan I'm talking
the
about.
next,
Yep.
and that is number 91, Mr. Wolf. So Your Honor, 90.
This one was confusing to me too because it almost felt like a ghost, when it's going through something. And I looked at this photo and I was like, what is going on here? Part of the Lexus is missing, in my opinion, and he's going to explain that.
I think these are just going to go in order for a few, and I'll keep announcing them. So this is 91, same vehicles, just a different viewpoint. Is that correct, Dr. Welcher?
Correct. This and the next slide.
I just want to stay
I know.
with this one. I
Hold
just
on a
asked the
second.
question, does it show the contact?
Right. So go ahead and answer now.
This slide and all the other slides, we're trying to show the angle of contact, but because it's two-dimensional image, you're losing some perspective. For example, here you're seeing the chrome piece on Mr. O'Keefe's Chevrolet, which is on the right. You're seeing it obviously behind where the Lexus is. So
Isn't that not accurate? If you're seeing pieces that aren't there, then to me, I'm like, why show this if it's not accurate?
we were trying to show it at a whole bunch of different angles to try and illustrate the degree of closeness or lack thereof.
All right. So
Thank you.
is it correct that on your direct examination, you said in sum and substance, we looked at the degree of overlap, and there's only about a 2 to 3 millimeters of overlap between the vehicles? Is that what you recall saying on direct?
That is correct.
And that you stated that supposed 2 to 3 millimeters of overlap was insufficient to cause the taillight of the Lexus to contact the rear of the Chevrolet. You recall saying that?
That's correct.
Now, I would like you to look at that. This is from your slide presentation. Is that not showing contact between the two vehicles?
Oh, it absolutely is not.
When he says it's absolutely not, I was like, sir, you showed us it made contact. The two vehicles made contact. He just argued that like a day ago. So I was like, why is he saying it absolutely isn't? That had me confused.
What you're seeing is a portion of the vehicle that is behind the area. Keep in mind the angle, the Lexus is angled off to the left. So the area that you see here is actually, in this case, in front of where the taillight is. This is why we tried showing it from a whole bunch of different angles, because when you try and take a two-dimensional image and look at it, you see stuff in the background. So and again, this is why in the computer, we overlaid them, looked at the measurements, in the computer, where you don't have this, we have the three-dimensional measurements, and it does not hit.
Where did you show in your slide presentation what you just said that it doesn't show in overlap?
So
Where?
it shows a contact. It definitely contacted, I'm sorry, Mr. Reporter, down
So now he's saying it does. So it's not absolute that it doesn't.
below here. It does not show a contact here. So to answer your question, all the next slides were our attempt to do that. So all the next slides is your answer.
We're going to go to those next slides. So just to be clear, you're saying that depiction does not show any contact between the taillight of the Lexus and the Chevy Traverse.
So the upper taillight, just to be clear, because the lower taillight is much closer.
Well, it's not only much closer, it's in contact, isn't it, sir?
It's very close. It's probably within an inch of being in contact.
It's within an inch. How do we know that? If the camera you used wasn't even in the right spot, how do we know that it wasn't hitting it? If you put the camera an inch to the wrong area, so I think this is just showing so much reasonable doubt in my opinion.
Oh, so you state that even the lower part of the taillight is not making contact?
So again, maybe there's a photo we could show or a scan. That is on the rear of the vehicle, and it contacts on the corner, which is just around, so maybe like an inch or so in front of it on the corner.
I'm just going with what you presented in your slide
Well, let's
presentation.
go to the next slides, and then
Sir,
we
I
can see
will
it.
determine which slides we go to on my questioning.
I'm just hoping
So-
that.
Oh wow. He's ready to get out of there. He's mad. He's like, I will determine which slides we go to. He's had it. But I think the argument he's trying to make is in his depiction, it does look like the taillight would overlap. And this model, though, his scans that he's being challenged on, there is a lower taillight that's on the bottom, and then there's this upper taillight. The upper one, what's interesting about it is it sticks out. And I even made that argument when we were talking last time. I was like, okay, I see the tire tracks, but I'm sure that her vehicle sticks out farther than the tire tracks. If you just look at the tire tracks alone, you're like, okay, yeah, sure. They don't hit the, they're so close to the traverse, but you're like, okay, they kind of go that way. But if her vehicle's wider and then her taillight's even wider, I would want to know, you know what I would want to know? I would want somebody to measure the tire tracks. And then from the tires, because that's where they are, we know that for a fact, right? Tire tracks, there they are. How many inches more is her vehicle out? Like, how much more wide is it? And then how much more wide is the taillight sticking out from there? And then all it is math. You're going to plug it in and you're going to figure out where everything was. And then you would know if the taillight made contact. To me, that's so much easier than doing an entire laser scan. Then again, I'm not an engineer. So maybe I'm completely wrong and I have no idea what I'm talking about, which could be true. But let's keep going because he's going to make some more points and maybe it'll become a little more crystal clear to us because I was still confused.
Now let's go to, Mr. Wolf, the next slide
There we go.
in your presentation. My question is, zeroing in, are you saying that that slide does not show contact between the tail light of Ms. Reed's Lexus and any part of the Chevy Traverse?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly what it shows. You can see a little better here. Again, we tried all these different angles, which is why all these slides are in there. But you can see some of the geometry of the light. This structure, and again, remember I said the Chevy kind of curves in as it goes up a little bit?
Let's go to the next slide.
I finally got a bunch of legal exhibits from this case. I've been waiting to get the actual exhibits so I don't have to look at this stuff that's kind of distorted from being on the internet. And I was showing Courtney some things today because I was like, ooh, what is this? Then my husband had his opinion. And I was like, we should just do one live where we're looking through all the exhibits because they look different. And I have all the text messages. So I'm like, wait a minute. This is interesting. Like, I'm looking at the time of all the text messages. I'm looking at the real photos. I'm zooming in. Anyway, we'll get there.
40.
But what I was going to make a point of is I've seen pictures of her taillight and this looks different. It looks like a chunk is taken out. But I mean, of his laser scan, like it's not showing the actual proportions of how it sticks out.
40, yes, please.
Hello, Court? There it is. Now that shows it. That shows it. It shows how wide the taillight sticks out. And wouldn't it make sense that if it stuck out more than the car, it would hit instead of the side of the car because it's sticking out?
That's Exhibit 41? No, I have a question, because it's not my slides.
So, Mr. Alessi, is this exhibit number 41 or is this from the PowerPoint? Because,
Slide 41. Slide.
okay.
To law baddies. We could have.
So-
exactly. We should make our own firm, the law baddies, and we should come in and be experts and say, well, we don't really know, but, from being on the internet and looking at things, maybe it could go up into space or it could have gone in a lawn. It's the law baddies. We'll take your money.
I'm putting this up because I want to show an actual photograph of that tail light, and I would like you, sir, to focus on the quarter panel
Whoa.
tail light in each. Do you see a jutting out?
For some reason, when I think of law baddies, I think of all of us, not that we would wear this because I don't really like suits, but I just imagine all of us with suits on and we're walking down one of those like wet pavement roads and we're just like all like have our briefcases, but we're like all holding the other person's briefcase too. That's how we come into court.
Of the quarter panel tail
Oh my
light
gosh,
in
that's
that
what the shirt
photo.
has to be,
You
like
see it jut out?
silhouettes.
So on a you and I are talking the same thing. There are little fins here.
Correct. Now, what I'd like to do is to go back to the depiction we were just looking at.
I have to tell you something at the end about Jonathan when we're done.
And that depiction doesn't show the jutting out, does it?
No, it does. Those are actually more on the side of the vehicle. You can't see them in this image.
Correct. You
But
can't see them.
hold on a second. I wasn't finished. But
Sir.
they are 100% there. We actually did special hand scans with a hand scanner of the taillight to put it back on to the vehicle.
You say they're 100% there, but you can't see it in that depiction, can you? The jutting out that you could see in the two-dimensional one we just saw. You can't see it.
I can't see who's behind that wall because it's being blocked by something. I can't see on the side of that taillight because it's on the side I can't see. It's being blocked.
Sir, my question is simple. You cannot see the jutting out of the taillight in this depiction, can you?
Correct.
Okay, now let's go on to the next question in this topic. You could have easily solved what you consider to be the issues you had with trying to show it lining up, couldn't you, sir? You had an easy solution for that.
I took the best solution. I'm not sure what
You
you're referring
had
to.
3D images, correct?
I did.
You could have shown and measured 3D images to get almost the exact contact point and almost the exact dimensions if you had just used the 3D images that you had available to you. Isn't that correct?
That's exactly what we did. When I went through the video analysis, I showed you how we overlaid the point clouds, the 3D scans, on top of each vehicle. So we took the, I'm sorry, we took
Sir,
the
please
vehicles.
don't interrupt.
Hold on.
Your Honor, he keeps referencing my hand and saying I'm doing something when I'm not, and I think that's distracting to the jury. I'm not interrupting him.
Hold on. Let the witness answer the question.
Oh, the court reporter. She was like, they're fighting in court. They're fighting in court. His hand. I want to know what he was doing with his hand because he was fierce. He's mad. He's over it. But I really wish I was in the courtroom in that moment because what did he do with his hand? Does anyone know? Whatever he was doing apparently made Welcher think that he was like cutting him off. Maybe he was going like this. I'm like, what was he doing? I got scared.
I am. I'm just holding my hand like this, Your Honor. He keeps saying that I'm doing something.
Mr. Leslie, please.
All right.
Go ahead. Finish the answer, Dr. Welcher.
Again, in the photogrammetric analysis, I showed the video. I showed how we overlaid the point cloud on top of the video. That proves that the way we solved it, correct camera characteristics, matches. Otherwise, that would be distorted. We overlaid the scans of the Lexus into the photogrammetric analysis. We overlaid the scans of the scene into the photogrammetric analysis. We overlaid all that stuff into the...
You did all this complicated stuff when all you had to do was get a 3D image that you could literally turn. Have you ever seen a 3D image, right? You could turn it and manipulate it. We can even do it on Amazon. You want to see what a couch looks like in your bedroom? Boop. Oh, look at that. It's going to touch the wall. Like a 3D image would have been so much easier, but I almost feel like they overcomplicated on purpose. So the jury is like, right, you see, they did this, they did that, they did this. There's a million pictures. They're put together. This is what it looks like. They had to scan it. It's like, no, you actually could have made, I guess, a better visual for some people, but maybe not.
analysis. We did exactly what you're suggesting.
You could have easily addressed this issue by the following. If you really believe there was no contact or not sufficient contact, you could have produced a graphic that shows a gap between the two vehicles.
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point. Because if you're arguing that there's a gap, then why can't we see it? What we're seeing is contact, and then you're saying absolutely not. But instead, why don't you show the gap?
That's not a graphic.
What is that?
Sir, I get to ask the questions, and you are to answer them subject to the judge's ruling. So my question is, couldn't you have created a graphic that would have better shown the issue that you are creating or talking about today? That's my question. Couldn't you have created a graphic?
We did. We created a whole bunch of graphics.
You called what we just saw a graphic?
Yes.
Well, if there's a gap, why isn't there then something that shows a clear gap?
Because when you have the angulation of the vehicles, you have perspective. When you're looking at it, even if you do it top down, you see everything projected onto a single flat plane. So you can't tell the height of things. So when you see things in this dimension, you can't necessarily see depth of things. So you lose in two-dimensional images, you lose one dimension depending on which way you're looking. That's why I showed it from all these different angles to try and show exactly what you're saying. We had graphics to do that.
3D images allow you to show perspectives for 360 degrees, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, none of what you presented in your slideshow shows the contact points from 360 degrees, does it?
I don't understand your question. Are you asking if I showed it at every single, I went through 360 slides that showed it at every single degree?
Sir, let's move on. I think I've made the
He's tired. He's done. He's had to wrangle him so much last time to get him to answer simple questions that at this point, he's altogether just giving up because he knows he's going to get the runaround. However, I do admit, Dr. Welcher, he's being a lot nicer. But unfortunately, he's already rubbed Alessi the wrong way, right? And he's not having it anymore. And at this point, what he's trying to show is that we couldn't see the gap, even though he's saying it exists. We can't see it, which would be a good thing, right, for the defense, because then there's doubt there. The perspective is hard to determine. 2D projections, they lose depth. And even though he insisted, no, this is showing. This is showing that it wasn't contacting it, that it was just on that bumper. Remember how he showed the little snow falling off? But I could see doubt there because they chose a method that might have been more technical, but it definitely doesn't demonstrate what they're trying to show. But now we're going to get into what somebody mentioned in the live chat last night, and that is the suspension height of the Lexus. I didn't want to get ahead of ourselves, and I love the chat right now. And by the way, the chat does save, just so you know. It does save. It takes about till the next morning until it's there, but loved all the Charlie's Angels references, love the Beyonce references. I can imagine like silhouettes on a shirt with a whole bunch of different color briefcases because, black is my favorite color, but I guess with a silhouette, it won't really make sense. But here we go. I wanted to play this for you as well. We're going to be talking about the suspension. And I know this is a little bit dry and boring, and that's why we have to spice it up with our conversations.
Just hope
So
I
now
answer
let's
your
go to, Mr. Wolf, the next slide
question. There we go.
in your presentation. My question is, zeroing in, are you saying that that slide does not show contact between the tail light of Ms. Reed's Lexus and any part of the Chevy
Oh,
Traverse?
this isn't what I want to play you.
Exactly
I
what it
already saw
shows.
this.
You can
Sorry. My apologies.
Next topic. Let's talk about hydraulics on the Lexus.
Oh, and I have it on 2x speed. Hold on. I'm on a roll tonight.
Lexus SUV. What type of hydraulic system does the Lexus SUV have?
So it has a mechanism, I believe it's actually pneumatic. It's air-based system that raises it up and down.
Do you know what the name of that system is, sir?
No, not off the top of my head.
Do you know how it works
I do.
specifically?
Well, I mean, I know generally that there's a button on the interior where you can raise and lower the ride height.
And is that the extent of your knowledge of that system on the Lexus?
No, and again, I know when you park it, it'll drop down the ride height. When you adjust it for different roadway conditions, it'll change the ride height.
Who knew? I didn't know that. I didn't know that some cars had their own hydraulic system. I mean, I remember hydraulics from back in the 90s. The cars would just be like jumping in the music videos. This isn't quite like that, but it does adjust itself depending on the terrain, depending on where you are. I see another super chat. I'm going to get to you in 1 second, and I see what it says. But do you have that on your vehicles? I don't think I have it on mine.
Do you know what the height tolerances are? In other words, the lowest to the highest?
I believe it's around 1.25 inches. At one point in time, I measured it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So you believe it's 1.25 inches up and 1.25 inches down? How do you apply the 1.25 inches?
I recall the total being like 1.25 inches, but I measured it at one point in time. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Would you be surprised to hear that the tolerance is 5 inches? on that
5.
vehicle?
I would be surprised. I don't recall it being that much, but I would need to double check.
Assume that the manual as well as other informations support that the tolerance is 5 inches and that specifically the vehicle can be raised 3 inches high and it can be lowered 2 inches. That's the basis for the 5. What was the suspension height of Miss Reed's Lexus that you used for your accident reconstruction analysis out front at 34 Fairview between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. on January 29, 2022 to determine whether it was possible for the spoiler on the back of the Lexus to make contact with the eye of Mr. O'Keefe? If it was even possible, what did you use for a measurement of the suspension?
Matched the measurements from when the vehicle was tested, I believe on February 1st at the Canton Police Department.
So he just admitted he did not know the exact suspension height of the Lexus at 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022 in order for that spoiler to make contact with John's eye. He just assumed that the height was the same as when the car was in the police custody the day, like days later. So that assumption is flawed. Unless he's going to say that. Air suspensions change height based on driving conditions. I didn't know that. And I'm assuming an accident reconstructionist should have known that. He said he was surprised by the fluctuations. Now, a juror could think, well, wait, I wouldn't want somebody investigating to be surprised by a fact. He couldn't take into account where the suspension would be at certain points, where it would have been pulling out of the garage at John's when she made contact with the Traverse, where it would have been in the snow hours later, earlier, in between. I think that's important. You tell me.
What match did you make?
So we aligned the bottom of the taillight, actually the sheet metal right below the taillight. So we adjusted the height of the Lexus to match that.
Did you in any place document what level the Lexus was at the time of any testing, meaning the suspension? Did you document it all?
Yes.
Where?
Oh no. His emotional support paperwork isn't as good as the laptop.
Slide 107.
Can we have slide 107, Mr. Wolf?
Pretty quick though, but I am on 1.25.
And then if you could zoom in on the lower photograph, the gentleman with the blue shirt. Zoom in a little more, please.
Okay.
So if I may, we matched the bottom of the sheet metal here to photographs when it was at the Canton Police Department.
But he's matching it to photographs. Why does that seem so not accurate to me? I know everybody's going to argue something different, but to me, I'm not sure.
I want to go, I'm changing topics to go back now to Fairview, 34 Fairview. You don't know what the suspension ride height at 34 Fairview was on January 29th of 2022, do you?
Correct.
So therefore, if you don't know what the suspension height was, because of course you weren't there on January 29, 2022, therefore there's no measuring stick, as you say, you assert that you would have accounted for it in your methodology. So you don't have the suspension height for that key day, do you, sir?
I only have it 2 days later.
All right. So
He only has it 2 days later. That unknown suspension setting affects the measurements, like whether the spoiler could even get to that point on John's face. He doesn't have that data from the incident. And I think, again, that could be an issue. It could inject reasonable doubt. These calculations they're not as accurate as they could have been. And now we're getting into what some might think is a little more boring. I thought this was very significant. So I always play things out of the entire trial day that I think are significant and no fluff. Like obviously there's things that go on in between. I might not catch everything. And if I forget something, I will bring it back like I did this morning. But now we're getting into the VCH, I think it's called, Vehicle Control History, and the tech stream data. Yes, we're going there again. And Welcher is going to clarify the distinctions between all of them, which I'm not going to play. And then he's also going to talk about the Bosch crash data retrieval system versus the black box. And guess what? I'm just going to tell you what it is. The black box, we already know. This is the event data recorder. It's built into the Lexus, and it's going to be the thing that's going to contain the data of what went on. And that data can be downloaded and analyzed. The Bosch crash retrieval system is a software. It's plugged into the black box, and then all that data gets downloaded, and then it can be analyzed. So it's a tool to analyze the data. Hope that made sense. And then you have the tech stream. This is another tool that you can use to read the data. And this is designed for technicians. That's why it's tech stream. And this is just to run diagnostic tests for repairs, for conducting maintenance on a Lexus vehicle. The tech stream data is not designed to record collision events. And I think that's important. important enough that Alessi is going to go into it with Dr. Welcher, and I think you can see why. Complicated, but I think we figured it out. Law baddies. Somebody said, oh, that was the super chat. Law baddie memberships. Maybe. Thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. I got to do something else with the
But
law
when you
baddies.
talk about key measurements,
Oh, I'm going to go here.
sir, how
Right,
common were VCH events when Miss Reed owned the Lexus?
In 2022,
From, do you know the owner?
So wait, I want to give this context. He's asking him, how many of these like tech stream events, the one that they are talking about with the collision, or they're calling the collision, he's asking how many of these have happened before? We want to look at that.
Ownership period of Miss Reed with respect to the Lexus? Do you know how long she owned it?
I have that documentation. I do it off the top of my head.
Do you have an approximate?
No, I mean, it was a 2021 vehicle.
Wait, I forgot what the shock game was. What was it again? Somebody explain the rules because y'all are lifting the solo cups. Are they red?
Our accident's January 29, 2022. But I did get that information.
Do you know how many VCH events were associated with the Lexus of Miss Reed?
I did not count them, no. I have them all.
Do you
I was
have-
only focused on the ones around our
Don't you think it would be important to look at all the other events and go back into the history of her car? I don't know. To me, I thought that would be important.
time period.
Exactly. But do you have the number of events? Do you know how many there were?
I could get it for you.
How long would it take, sir?
3 minutes?
Why don't we come back to it?
Okay.
And we'll see if it's...
How about I start this so that we don't have to wait for it to boot up? And then when we come back to it, it's ready to go. You
As
okay
long
with
as
that?
that's all you're looking at, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. And then pick your head up, please, so I can finish these two
Please,
topics.
go ahead.
So, how often were VCH events recorded?
I thought it was funny when he's like, he's got to get to that. He's got to get to that computer. He's got to get to it. He had to boot up his emotional support laptop again. So while he's rebooting that, I'm just going to jump ahead.
There's 18.
18. So there were your records show that there were 18 VCH events recorded on Miss Reed's Lexus, correct?
Before the subject one.
Right.
So there were 18 other events recorded before the one that the Commonwealth is associating with the impact to John O'Keefe. And none of those were marked by him as being related to a collision. And now we're going to go on to the reverse events in a second.
Did you conclude that any of those events, other than the 1162-2, were a collision?
No.
Now let's go to reverse recorded events. Can you tell how many of those 18 events were reverse recorded events? And you know what I mean by reverse recorded events?
Yes.
The vehicle going in reverse?
Correct.
How many of those events were the vehicle going in reverse?
And this is before.
4. Other than the...
He asked
No,
you,
I
is
said
this
before.
before?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I would have to pull up the PCS file.
Could you start that and I can continue on with the questioning?
I got to, so the PCS file is I have a second laptop that
Here's
has
what I'm going to
touchscreen.
do. That's not important.
He has his backup. He has his backup emotional support laptop just in case the other one dies. Oh no, he's got 2 back there.
For me to keep going and get through it,
Okay.
so let's just stay on the
Oh
events,
my
okay?
goodness. He's looking for it. He's grabbing for it.
Only
Oh,
one
no.
of all of those events, those 18,
Oh no.
are you concluding
What is he doing?
that there was a collision associated with them, correct? Just one.
Is he even listening to the question? Because I can't even pay attention to the question because I'm watching him turn on his computer with one finger. I don't know what he's doing.
No, all those 18 are before. The collision's number 19.
No, I'm saying, I understand what you're saying, but for all the other events that are recorded, you're not, other than the January 29, 1162-2,
He's not even- Can you imagine if I'm in the stream and I'm like, oh, didn't see you guys there. Oh my goodness. At least he came prepared. At least he came prepared. I have to give him that.
you're not concluding that any of those were collisions, correct?
I didn't look at them. They were so far mileage away from everything.
But
What's he
you're
looking
not
at?
concluding, even though they were so far away and you didn't look at them, you don't conclude from the information you have
Are they going to dock his pay for any time he's not like completely focused on the questions?
that any of them were a collision, correct?
Sustained.
Let's go to 5:07 a.m. on
So at 5:07 a.m., that's going to be the impact with John's Traverse.
January 29th, 2022 at One Meadows, the home of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay.
There was a collision between Miss Reed's 6,000-pound Lexus and Mr. O'Keefe's approximately 4,500 Chevy Traverse. That's undisputed, correct? They collided. They made contact.
They touched.
Right.
So now he just said they touched. There was an impact.
But the actual collision at One Meadows did not register the recording of an event on the Lexus VCH system, did it?
Correct. It's too minor.
So, however, you want this jury, sir, to conclude that the glancing blow that you contend occurred at 34 Fairview Road by the same 6,000-pound Lexus in contact with a mere 216-pound man
Good
did
point.
register an event on the Lexus, correct?
No. The impact didn't register the event. As I pointed out, the trigger was from when the accelerator pedal went to 30%. The
Okay.
tech stream does not register crashes at all. It registers excessive acceleration, excessive steering, excessive braking, things like that, things that would be part of the maintenance system.
So in this case, there was an impact with Karen's SUV and the Traverse, but it didn't trigger the VCH event at all. Though technically it was a collision, but he says it's too minor. But Alessi made a good point. He's then, okay, well, you've got these two heavy vehicles that have made contact. But then how does a sideswipe with a 216-pound man that's less weight than another vehicle not register? I mean, register, and the other one doesn't register. Sorry about that. Register. How does that work? And he said, well, it didn't register as a collision at John's because when it did register in front of 34 Fairview, it was the pedal. It was Karen allegedly, putting the pedal down 30% to 74%. So it was excessive acceleration. And that is what was really being triggered. Her putting it in reverse and then gunning it, as he stated. But he can't even tell you when that trigger event and impact occur of the trigger event when the impact occurred, because the system doesn't tell you that. So I think that's interesting because this system doesn't detect collisions. They're just assuming a collision happened because of other information they've gathered that he already pointed out, glass on the ground, testimony that he's received, and that John was on the grass or the snow right there off of the road. But it didn't have an actual recorded event like a collision. For all he knows, she could have accidentally hit the gas really quick, then realized it went forward, and then, she went back and then she left. Right? He wouldn't be able to tell that by looking at the system. But we're going to get into redirect by Brennan. And, it was pretty brief. I was a little surprised that it was so brief. I don't know if any of you were like, wow, that was like done so quickly. But yes, we're gonna get to redirect because I thought that was important. We already did this one. Let's go to redirect. Here it is.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brandon.
You were asked some
Actually,
questions.
it's morning, but yes.
You were asked some questions about
Can you imagine Brendan laughing? For some reason, I just can't ever imagine him just like loosening his tie just a little bit.
the ring video from Meadows, which was John O'Keefe's home. And you were asked whether you're aware if the cameras had changed over time.
Correct.
The fact that the camera was replaced, does that any way affect your opinion to a reasonable degree of engineering certainty about your conclusions relative to that touching between the cars?
Absolutely not. It would have shown up as increased error when we overlaid the point clouds onto the photos or the point clouds onto the video. If it was an error, it would have showed an error.
Do you have any concern whatsoever that any of the information from the scan is in any way tainted, compromised, or inadequate?
That would be very hard to do. You literally press a button and stand there and watch it, and the laser does its thing. So
So the laser just does its thing. He's like, nah, it doesn't make any errors. It's like an AI. We just go boom. It's done. It's like I stand back. He actually wasn't even there. They got into that. He wasn't even there. He's like, one of my employees did it. I told him what to do. It's all fine.
have absolutely no reason to disbelieve it. Additionally, again, if it was messed up, once you laid it over on top of the photograph, it would show the difference. So no, the data's fine.
He even said it. He's like, the data's fine. Oh my goodness.
Is there any evidence whatsoever that you've seen that any parts of your presentation were photoshopped?
No.
Okay, that made me chuckle because when people do those memes, they're like, haters gonna say it's Photoshop. Oh boy.
You were asked questions about the suspension of the motor vehicle of the defendant's Lexus. Do you have any information that the suspension at any point was changed?
No.
Yesterday, you were asked a number of questions about formulas. You took out your
I'm gonna go to a different part because I just remembered something. Brendan did something a little snarky at the end. I didn't really like it. I'm not sure if the defense liked it. I'm guessing they didn't. I'm guessing they don't like many things that he does. But I think he was just trying to slip this in because he's trying to anticipate what witnesses are going to come up. And he already knows that the ARCA, the crash daddies, that they're going to be coming in the future. And remember, when he did voir dire with, I can't believe I'm calling him Crash Daddy. I can't think of his name right now. The one with the dimples from ARCA. When he did that, he talked all about these deleted text messages and these deleted messages. And this got brought up because of the fact that there were so many deleted messages and destroyed cell phones with the Commonwealth witnesses that they had to find something to make it look like, oh, well, look, the ARCA guys do this too. This isn't something shady. And by the way, he's really good at cross examination because remember, he is originally a defense attorney. So he's doing this really well when he's on cross examination with the current witnesses that are on right now for the defense's case. He's really good. He is. He's sharper. I'm noticing that because I've never witnessed this before. This is my first time watching him do his thing like this. And he's going to do this. He's going to keep showing that everything is normal. So what he's saying is, look at the ARCA guys. They're deleting things. They're deleting it. So it's shady. Oh, they're using Signal. Remember that? They're communicating through Signal. It's encrypted. Well, Jackson likes to communicate. You never asked him why. There's no context to that. A lot of times it's because it's more private. You don't want your client's information getting leaked out. You don't want passwords and other things you might be sharing between other people in your law firm because you are dealing with very sensitive materials, very sensitive things, right? But it makes it look nefarious when you're starting to ask, oh, an ARCA person, oh, why did you delete 100 messages? He's like, sir, that's what I do. They weren't necessary anymore. They were things like, where are we going to meet? What time do I have to be there? They were minor conversations. It's going back and forth. But the Commonwealth was trying to make it look like, no, you're hiding something. So he's going to do the same thing with Welcher, which I thought was interesting. So I think that's really important for us to remember because he's going to use this tactic going forward as well in days to come. And you're going to recognize it now. But here it is. Let me see. It's right here. Let me go back here.
You were asked questions about communications when you would have communications with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Did you ever use encrypted apps to secretly hide your communications? Apps like Signal?
No, I don't have any of those.
That was objected to because he said hiding. You're hiding conversations. That wasn't proper.
So the form of the question, ask it differently.
When you were communicating with members of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, did you ever use encrypted apps like Signal to communicate?
Objection, scope, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it.
No, I mean,
The law baddies are getting on the stand. We're like, no, it just did its thing. It did its thing, I guess. They're like, how does this work, Kimber? It just did its thing. And it's fine. The data's fine.
I don't even know what that is.
Would you ever use an encrypted app so those communications couldn't be tracked?
No.
Would you ever have any reason as a professional for doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The judge sustained. It was getting out there. He's not trying to hide conversations, I would say, but I don't know. I don't know the context, but you can see this little back and forth, right? He's going to keep doing this with other witnesses so that everything the defense tries to make look bad, he's going to be like, no, look, everybody does it. But he said, I don't even know what that is. I don't converse with people. And this is, again, just to insinuate that the defense talking to Arca on Signal is shady. But to be fair, a lot of people use encrypted apps. Professionals. I mean, maybe this man doesn't because he doesn't have to in his capacity. I don't know. But it's not really that big of a deal. But anyway. And last, Brendan asked him about confirmation bias. How many times have we heard about this? But he had to get it in because that was a big topic of conversation. And of course, he's going to stand by his claim that he was objective, even though he literally said he was subjective.
You were asked about confirmation bias. You remember those questions?
I do.
Could I have slide 33 of your PowerPoint, please?
I'm sorry, what number?
Slide 33.
Give me a second.
Oh, there's everything.
33.
You could zoom that in, please. A little larger so we can see it.
So I wanted to answer this really quick. Hi, Holly. Holly said, I never understood why I can't find a definite spot where John was found. I've mentioned this several times, and I think it is important. So I'm going to stop really quick because we're almost to the end. This was a short day, and then we can answer some questions. And I could have held out, but then I'll forget. My brain has to answer now. So I've taken like 2 years of death investigation, but I've done it very slowly. So I only take like one class every 3 months. So I'm going very slow. So I only have maybe like 4 or 5 certificates. But one of the first ones we had to learn about was how to document a death scene, a crime scene or a death scene, because when you get there, you don't know what happened. And that was my point yesterday. Like the first thing you're going to say is like, what happened? You're going to get there and you're going to see somebody and they're going to be deceased. And you're starting out as a death investigation. It's not a homicide yet. You just got there. Nobody knows what happened. But the first thing they tell you to do is to literally, you have a digital camera. You don't have film like the old days. You can take thousands and thousands of photos from every different angle. You can take so many photos. So do that. Take them from above, take them from below, take them close up, take them far. And they literally did an entire course on every single angle and every single position that you can get in, because guess what? You're only going to have one chance to catch something that maybe you will never have the opportunity to see again, the position of evidence, where something was. And you also have with you rulers. You have rulers, you have a thermometer, you have everything you need because you only get one shot. That's it. When they remove the body, it's over You can never put it back in that same position. You can never estimate where it was again. That's why you have all of this at your disposal. And that's why it takes so long to process a scene. In the very beginning of this investigation, this wasn't done. Crime scene investigators, death investigators, the medical examiner's office was not on scene, which I thought was very peculiar from the beginning, especially in the case where a cop has been found deceased or on the brink of death. To me, I find that to be one of the weirdest parts and why I got into this case, and also because my dad's from Canton. But why not? Where are all the photos? Where are the measurements? What was the rush? I understand. Oh, no, I understand. He had to be worked on. They had to rush him to the hospital. But don't you want to preserve that man's opportunity for what I would call like, this isn't closure for his family. This is closure for his own death investigation, his own reason. Like, I would want everybody to know what happened to me morbidly, but you know what I mean? So for me, I was just like, why didn't anyone do this? Everybody has cell phones. So it's like nobody on scene took photos, thought to take photos. You were all trained. So I was just wondering, did everybody assume that someone else was going to do it? And it's not the EMT's job, but if you didn't see anyone doing it, why didn't somebody step in and do it? That's kind of what I'm so confused about, because then it becomes a big can of worms. It's all these questions we don't know. We're just assuming, there's speculation. And at that point, I feel like your investigation is so far gone, you're not going to be able to prove anything because you don't have enough data. And even in this investigation going forward and in this trial, they're admitting they don't have the data. They're admitting that. Not to mention things like ring camera footage not being collected and the normal things that investigators would do on a case wasn't done. So I think that's one of my biggest gripes because that's what I'm learning about. That's what I care about. And it's something that fascinated me. And that's why I'm not going to school to work at a medical examiner's office. I am genuinely fascinated with these things. But let's go on and we'll answer some questions after.
I cannot do it with one monitor.
You can't do it any closer than that?
Not since I took down, oh, hold on. Right, here we go. Which part do you want me to zoom in?
Miss Gilman can zoom in for you.
Sorry? Which part?
Miss Gilman's going to do it for you.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
If you could zoom in, please. Okay. On shift position signal, going forward, then neutral and reverse, does that data suffer from confirmation bias?
No, that's strictly electronic data.
When we look over at the vehicle speed, can we go to the left a little bit?
Here's what's crazy. Even I have like an evidence collection kit at my house, and I'm not even a professional yet. But in the beginning, they gave us a discount to like buy all this evidence stuff. I'll take photos of it and put it on my community tab later when I'm home. But even I have that stuff. Like even I have evidence bags, even though I don't use it. I wanted to see it. I want to understand what they looked like, and I just find that to be so hard to believe. I'm responding to Lacey that the head of the crime department walked up and gave them the solo cups. I cannot verify. I don't have the person's name. I don't know, but of course I heard. Canton PD is right down the street. Yes, it's snowing, but it's somebody's life and death. Like I don't understand it.
Down. Vehicle speed, ending at 2361
Even a Tupperware container or something would have been better than a solo cup with no top. A glass container, maybe something that's sealed.
miles per hour. Does that suffer from confirmation bias?
No, again, these are direct readings from the vehicle. Again, that speed on this here, you have to correct for the slippage, which I do later on in the slide, but that is a direct reading from what the speedometer is seeing.
I'm sorry that I'm making you listen to this boring part because I forgot I was just going to tell you. He stood by his claims that he was objective. All of this stuff, the speed, the throttle position, the shift signals, they don't contain confirmation bias. It's just electronic data. And I understand this argument, but there's the analysis of said data. That's where the confirmation bias comes in. It's not necessarily the numbers, we know that. It's how they're derived, how they're examined. But this could go both ways. I don't think it was the most powerful argument that it didn't contain confirmation bias because we just heard him talk about it for hours the day before And he even thought the truth was subjective. But and he even said he can't be objective 100% because he has to listen to testimony and he doesn't know if that testimony is true, what he heard from maybe other witnesses. So he almost wanted to like cover his own butt and say like, well, I did my best. But I really want to get to the end of this because this is the most important part and you're going to get mad at me. Maybe not, because here we are, we're trying to be open-minded and I certainly am. I can say things and I can analyze things, but I want to be open-minded. And there was this ending part that I do want to talk about. But before that, I forgot I forgot I saved you a little clip because I thought this was funny. Hang on. I hope I have it. It's right here. Ready?
Dr. Welcher, you are all set.
Oh my God, thank you.
Do you see that? Hold on. Rewind it.
Dr. Welcher, you are all set.
Oh my God, thank you.
Dr. Welcher, you're all set. Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you, Ron. Oh my God. He was like, oh, I can now go and play with my laptops. But to be serious, this next part is not good. It's not good. But I thought that was cute. People laughed. I was assuming that wasn't the jury because the judge already made statements about not reacting. So I had to assume that was probably the audience. And that gave me the impression that maybe some people thought that this was a good witness, that they liked him. I thought I would just share that. But now for what is in my thumbnail, because you probably looked and said, what? Just got Karen Reed on the thumbnail. What's going on here? It might have made some of you click. Maybe you just click anyway. Thank you for that. But it was the final exhibit for their case before they rested. And it is a clip from a documentary with Karen questioning if she could have accidentally hit John O'Keefe. I was disappointed in this. To me, this is damning, and I'm disappointed because I think all of us know not to talk. You know what they say, and I don't really like the saying, but like, loose lips sink ships. It's not a good saying, but it rhymes, so people use it, right? But it's just, you have the right to remain silent, and nobody can hold that against you. But what they can use against you in a court of law is what you did say. And this was pretty damning. I think out of all the clips that I've seen, this one is the worst. And some people wanted to ask why this is allowed, why they can keep putting in clips this way and edit them the way that they want. And the defense can't. They can't bring in the other parts and make it make sense and get the context. So I wanted to answer that question before we actually watch it. Most people that are watching trials know that what a hearsay statement is, right? It's an out of court statement that's being offered to prove that something is true. That's hearsay. And it's usually not admissible. We hear that all the time. That's hearsay, but there are exceptions to that rule. And one of them is a statement of a party opponent. And when I first heard this in law school, I was like, what? A party? What is this? What do you mean? A party to the case is either the plaintiff or the defendant. In this case, we've got the state, we've got the defendant. So Karen Reed is the defendant and the opposing party for the other side, right? And that's the state, the Commonwealth in this case. So a statement that's made by a party opponent is a statement that a party made that's against their own interest. And that's why it's allowed. Because normally it wouldn't be reliable. If you misinterpreted, you heard it from another person, you didn't hear it from the actual person, the only way you could get that in is if they came in and were questioned on the stand about their statement. But in this case, Karen herself is saying this in a documentary. So there is a reasonable expectation that Karen is aware of the content of her own statement. So the defense is going to be able to bring that in because it's against Karen. I mean, not the defense. The Commonwealth is going to bring it in because it's against Karen. But the defense can't because it's against their own party. Does that make sense? Sorry, I got mixed up. It's hard for me to remember all these things. It's self-incriminating, right? So the only way to question her about this is if she takes the stand. So this could be a tactic to get her to take the stand. And I saw an interview with her walking down the stairs like she always did right after this day. And they were like, Karen, are you going to take the stand? And she kind of did the whole like hair, she's like, maybe, I don't know, what's to be decided. That might be what they're trying to do so that she can give context to these things that she was saying. But let's play it and then we're going to discuss it. But before I even push play, I wanted you to see something, and somebody mentioned it. Look at the back row here. Look at these women in the back row. They're all looking at Brendan the same way, and I was like, "Wow, my goodness." They're just like dialed in. All right, are you I know this isn't funny. Like we laugh and we make jokes and stuff and in the chat, that's what we're doing. We're here to hang out. But these are serious matters, and I just paused it on that little scene and saw that and I thought, "Wow, that was interesting." But are you ready for this? Okay. Here we go.
Commonwealth moves to introduce and play clip 26.
I wanted to put the closed captioning on cuz she is very low volume.
So I thought, could I have
Okay, where's the closed captions? Already I'm like, "Come on."
run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it? I mean, I've always got the music blasting. It's snowing. I got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit the back of my car and I hit him in the knee and he's drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something? And then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over? Or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out? And David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
So, Karen appears to be asserting her own hypothesis about what could have happened that night that John was killed. She says, "So I thought, could I have run him over?" So that was the first hypothesis. Could I have run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it? I mean, I've always got the music blasting. It's snowing. I've got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit the back of my car? Now, at that point, what she means is, did he, she's gesturing with her hand at this point when she's talking. So I'm guessing she's talking about, like, did he tap the back of my car to say, like, "Hey, I'm right here"? But this sounds bad because it's out of context. And she goes on to say, "Did I hit him in the knee and he's drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something?" And then she explained. And then I hired David Yannetti and I asked him those questions on the night of January 29th. And when she said this part, I think some eyebrows would have been raised because she already had a defense attorney on January 29th. So that evening, after John was discovered, that morning at 6 a.m., his body was found. She already had an attorney that night. But whether you want to see that as evidence of guilt, you're really not supposed to look at someone retaining counsel as to prove that they are guilty of anything. You should retain an attorney. But remember, her car had been towed already earlier that day. So at this point, she knew they were investigating her. So I think the smartest thing would be to get an attorney. But she asked her attorney all of those questions. I don't know. What if I ran over his foot or I clipped him in the knee and he passed out? Or what if he went to care for himself and he threw up and passed out? And her attorney responded, yeah, then you would have some element of culpability. And if that word is foreign to you, I'm sure you know what it means. I'm sure you can figure it out and infer what it means, but it's responsibility, it's fault. It's that you did something wrong, that you were to blame. So essentially, she would have some guilt. And all of this is so damning because these are her own statements. They're her own thoughts. They're her own hypotheses, like we were just talking about. It's what was running through her mind as she's trying to figure out what happened. That question at the beginning, what happened? Now, on one hand, I wanted to explain the Commonwealth is putting this out because they're implying a consciousness of guilt, that she herself was questioning whether she could have done this. And her own attorney responded that if any of those scenarios that she just explained happened, then she would be guilty in some way. But to what degree? That depends. Because remember, there are different charges. There's 3 charges to be exact. And we'll get to it in 1 second. I want to also point out, these are out of context. Do I personally believe that she could be taken both ways? Yes. I think there are some people that are going to be like, are you kidding me? I know exactly what she meant by all that. I say those things all the time. It's kind of like my cousin Vinny when he's like, I shot the clerk. I shot the clerk. And they're like, oh, we're locking you up. And you're like, no, I was questioning it. I was curious. Like, you think I shot the clerk? So on one hand, I 100% think there are going to be jury members who believe, I don't think she meant that. She's asking, like, what if I did? What if I did? Which is a natural thing to think. But on the other hand, it can look bad. And I want to go over this very quickly before I answer questions and whatnot, because I think it's important because we always go really fast and maybe you haven't heard. So we have the second-degree murder charge, which involves intentionally killing another person, but without premeditation. So, first-degree murder is you planned it, you went there, you were lying in wait, you intentionally meant to kill them because you planned it out. This is without that. This killing must be done with malice aforethought. And I think it's important to break that down even further because when you hear intentional, because you're like, it's an intentional killing, a lot of people's brains go right to, okay, she had to have meant to kill John O'Keefe. But the Commonwealth must prove that Karen caused the death and that she intended to kill him, but not just that. There's an or in the statute. It's intended to kill him, or she intended to cause grievous bodily harm, or intended to do an act which, in the circumstances, she knew or a reasonable person would have known, it would create a strong likelihood that death would result. So let's just do our own hypothetical and say that the jury believes that Karen had been drinking all night and that she was mad at John and she pulled forward in anger and she backed up really fast to scare him. And let's just say that's what they believe. Well, then she should have known that there was a strong likelihood that that could result in hurting him in a severe manner or even killing him. So that would mean that that element was proven. But what if they believe that she did run him over or that she didn't know that she did it, but she had been drinking and she thought, I don't know, she was hitting the brake, but she was hitting the gas, and then she rammed into him like an accident? Well, that wouldn't include the element I just talked about for intent. So that would not be second degree. We would move to the second charge, which is manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence, which sounds pretty self explanatory. But just in case you want an explanation, the Commonwealth would have to prove that Karen was operating a motor vehicle, which we know she was, and that she was under the influence, and that she was reckless or negligent in her operation of that vehicle, and that caused death. And lastly, the third charge. And I think this one could be a little bit confusing. It's leaving the scene of a collision resulting in death. If you just read it like that and you believe the last charge fits the scenario, it would seem like this charge is included, but this has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen would have known she killed him because she wouldn't intentionally leave after she collided with or caused death on another person, only if she knew she had something right and she assumed it was John and she knew it was him. So in the first trial, some of the jurors were not sure about the manslaughter charge, not the first charge of second-degree murder. They were not with that one, but it was the one about being intoxicated and driving, and then the one about leaving. I still think that this jury is going to have to consider that one the most out of all these charges. Unless, and I wanted to wait till I got here because I know people are like, Kimber, but listen, this is the truth. Unless they don't believe that John O'Keefe was hit with a vehicle. If that's completely out of the picture, they don't even have to run scenarios in their mind because something else happened entirely, which is the point that the defense is trying to make to show that those injuries don't match. But after that clip was played, the Commonwealth rested their case. So they're done. So now it's time for you to tell me, after everything that you've heard so far, because we are at the end of the Commonwealth's entire case, did they prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, any of these charges against Karen Read? Why or why not? I'm going to stay here for a little while because I want to know. And I'm going to scroll back because I was talking for a while. And you're probably like, oh my gosh, take a breath. But I really want to read this. Let's see what y'all have to say because you are important. So one person said, Yaha, am I pronouncing that right? The conspiracy theory is insane. I think some people think a conspiracy theory. I think other people just think alternative theory, or that's the same word, but like alternative event. Um, Holly said, "Isn't this a tactic to let the defendant testify without getting on the stand?" Okay. So her doing the interviews? Yes, it can be. Does it help? I don't know. Lacey asked, "Did she not pass this through her lawyer before this interview?" A part of me thinks not. When I was listening to one of the documentaries, I went to the little like private screening and I was telling you that behind the scenes there was like people talking about it and everything. And I was talking to the people from Investigation Discovery. And she said it herself in the documentary, but this was like a chance for her to speak because I guess she always felt like she didn't really get that chance. But like you have that chance if you want to go on the stand, but I don't think they're going to want to put her there. Cuff said, "See, I don't find that self incriminating the way she describes all of her thoughts and the variables. Like I said, not a Karen fan, just lots of reasonable doubt." It's kind of how I feel. Um, and Lisa said, "I feel they shouldn't be able to play clips out of context." I agree. I think for completeness, they should have to play everything. Nicole says, "I think it makes her sound more credible. A guilty person wouldn't throw out something that they did." True. True. Yaha said, "There's no reasonable doubt that she hit him unless you think the taillight pieces were planted." I understand your concept and I understand what you're saying, but I also think this, and we have to take the totality of the circumstances, like everything that happened, and we have to look at all of the different witnesses and whether there's reasonable doubt in any of their testimonies. So, not just the taillight, not just this, not just that, but like the entire case. Carrie said, "Any normal person would ask themselves all of those questions, but not voice them in front of a camera." Am I surprised? I am surprised at that. Graceful said, "She's just being honest, in my opinion." And I love that we're going back and forth and have different opinions because I always say this, but 12 people on a jury and then alternative jurors too, they're all going to have different opinions. So it's really important for us to understand that. And we're going to see things differently. Harry said, "Did he jump out of the way, then hit himself in the face with his glass, stumble back and hit his head on the ground?" We know that Dr. Wolf testified to the fact that people can be wasted, be drunk, and slip and fall and have the same type of damage. I don't know how to understand the other cuts and things on him, though. That's why I believe there is reasonable doubt because of his body injuries. That's where I'm stuck. That's where I'm stuck. I'm stuck on his body injuries. Perry, Lacey's asking, where did the lacerations on his arm come from? And I think that's really interesting. And Cuff said, all good questions, baddies." I love that we like literally just came up with this last night, but I'm rolling with it. I really am. Um, Duster said, "If Karen is convicted, it will be because of her interviews." John looked like a water buffalo. I heard that. I freaking heard that. I don't know if they play that in court, but I heard that and I was kind of like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that." Courtney says his phone data and her car data lining up too. Lacey said, "But they have to prove it." Anna, "They didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt." Am I still saying Anna and it's Anna? I keep asking you, but then I don't look in the comments to see which one it is. Sandra said, "No, they didn't." Anna said, "She's guilty, but they didn't. I mean, they didn't prove it." Nicole says, "Has this trial brought up the pig ear DNA and the dog being rehomed?" Not yet. Lisa said, "Absolutely not." Queen of my crew said, "Not proven without reasonable doubt. They didn't even prove he was hit by a car." Courtney, "Karen is going to look good in orange." Orange is my favorite color, by the way. Not trying to foreshadow anything. I'll stick to sitting on my orange couch. Okay, wait, is this Susan's boys? "The Commonwealth's witnesses sure did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense ripped them apart on cross examination." I haven't gotten there yet. I'm getting there on Monday. I hope you're here with me on Monday. Cuffy said no. They did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Their own experts could not even explain based on their own evidence and research. Odin's barter said, the mere fact that I have to consider if he was hit at all means I have doubts. How do you say your name again? Radia? Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Brian Higgins, bad guys framed on Karen Reed. You guys not look at that direction. I think we are. I think it's coming up. I definitely think it's coming up. Angela said, I don't think they've proven their case at all. The expert witness for the prosecution was useless. Also, the police. Yaha said, no, the taillights are planted or there was a collision. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Angela said, I don't think they've proven their case. The prosecution's experts was a waste. Plus, the way the police handled the investigation put so much doubt into this being able to prove their case. Queen of My Crew said, seems to me he was beat and then bitten by a dog. Possible. Lisa said, I actually believe in an alternative theory. And the thing is, like, Courtney and I go back and forth, and we were, like, bickering like a couple, like a married couple, because we were I just call it that because I'm like, "I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm just passionate. I'm just passionate." And I'm like, "I'm just trying to figure this out." And she's like, "No, I'm not mad. I would never be mad." But we get to these, like, heated discussions where, I just got that packet of evidence. Let's see if I can even bring it up, because remember I was able to do that yesterday? Ooh, can I bring it up? I've got exhibits. I've got exhibits. I don't know what you would even wanna see and whether I can even bring these up. But for example, I've got like the text messages. Um, I don't think this will work. Can I put I wonder if I can put a what's it called in here? A PDF. Can I put a PDF in here? Oh my gosh, I can put a PDF in here. What? Look, I have this Celebrate. You guys want to look at this or no? Um, okay, I know it's way too small there, but oh my gosh, let me get out of here. Hold on. This isn't the one I wanted. I'll keep going with everyone. Oh, this is the one I wanted. It does let you put PDFs in here. Okay. This is Karen Reed and Jen McCabe. Can you send me Carrie's number? There's a bunch of these. I got a whole packet of evidence. I don't want to pull this one up because that's his okay. Here's some evidence at the scene that I didn't really get to see thoroughly before. Finally got this stuff. I like been waiting to see like up close, but I think that's a piece of taillight. It's a clear piece of taillight. Anyway, I could look at these for hours. This one has 10 pages in it. This is blood and snow, and this is some glass, I would assume, or that taillight piece. There's a shoe up close, and these are like good quality photos because they're right from the exhibits. If anyone, I don't know, wanted to look at that. I don't know if this is even interesting to you, so I'm just going to put it down until I read the comments. What happens if Karen Reed gets convicted? Well, in Massachusetts, I think if it's the second charge, which I don't think that people would assume that she is going to meet the elements for the first, the minimum is 5 years, the maximum is 25, I believe. There's all kinds of options because the jury is going to suggest what their sentence would be, and then the judge gets to rule on that. Themis and the Aurora 33 said, I think she did hit him, but not on purpose, but it was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Whitney says both sides are, she's in doubt about both sides. Lots of questions here. Black soles, not the same shoe as presented as evidence. I would like to see that because I don't know which one was presented as evidence. So you're saying that's not the right shoe? I thought this was an interesting photo. See that? I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm like, what am I looking at here? This is the road. And then this is the flagpole. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I don't have to keep going through these. I just thought it was interesting because they're really good quality. and I hadn't seen any good quality pictures up close. And I'm just like one of those people who love looking through exhibits. And I have so many of the text messages that I've just been um going through them and kind of like, oh, I have this one too. I mean, it's the end of the video, so if anyone wants to leave and think this is boring, oh, why don't I can't turn it. Oh, just let me turn it. Oh, that's dumb. Wait. Yeah, it's not letting me turn it in here. There's a bunch in here. I hope I don't have any bad pictures in here. But I mean, they did take pictures of the evidence they had collected. Well, we've already seen a lot of this evidence, measurements and whatnot. I don't know what that is. Is that the shoe? No, I think that's the hat. There's the hat. Anyway, I got a bunch of the text messages that I'm going to look through tonight because I thought it was interesting. Radia says, I'm a big fan of you and I watch you every day. You upload true crime and you inspire me. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you. Well, I am so appreciative that all of you are here with me tonight. I was really sad today. I was just in a bad mood. I woke up, I don't know, on the wrong side of the bed, as they say, and I wasn't feeling good. And I was waiting to come on here because I just wanted to be friends with everyone. Like, feel like I was with my friends tonight, but I'm gonna go because it has been a little while. And I really do appreciate all of you being here. Thank you for the super chats. I will consider doing something interesting with like little memberships on here or something. And I have new videos coming out on all channels. We have a Dark Livity video. I'm filming videos for my main channel. I've got a Diddy video coming out on this channel. So stay tuned. And again, I thank you so much for being here. Um, Somebody said, could you put the picture of the shoe in the snow and the shoe in the court? I don't have the shoe from the court. Oh, somebody give me a super chat. Otis Martyr said, as an evil hunter from the north, I can tell you that blood does not soak up through snow. If blood is visible, it arrived after the snow. Wow. That's so interesting. Thank you for your super chat. Susan's boy says, just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. You're killing it with these lives. No pun intended. You're the best and the most compassionate channel on here. And we love you from Australia. Thanks so much. Sometimes I think people are going to think I'm not compassionate because I'm laughing on this channel, but I don't do that on my main channel when I'm telling someone's story. So, um, thank you guys so much for being here. I do appreciate it. Hello, Deb. I see you came at the last minute, or you might have been here earlier, but thank you for saying you love my channel. I'm going to go to bed, and I will see you on Monday. Have a good Sunday. Have a good rest of the weekend. And if you're already to the next day or so, because you're on a different time zone, have a great week. I'll see you soon.